Dub Nation. After the final buzzer. This is where you come for instant post-game reaction.
Oh, hell yeah.
This is Dubs OT.
Can't wait.
With John Dickinson.
Hey, JD, what you up to, sugar? Long time no talk to.
On KNBR 104.5 and 680. Streaming live at knbr.com and on the KNBR app.
All right, welcome in. Warriors win as they get the job done against Charlotte this morning and on into the afternoon here out on the West Coast. Odd start time to close out 2025. Plenty of time for the Warriors to fly back from Charlotte, North Carolina, and have some semblance of a New Year's Eve. And Happy New Year to everyone as we get this thing rolling here on the KNBR YouTube page. YouTube only for the semi-holiday. Kyle Haar's with me. Kyle, how you doing, my friend? Welcome to you. And Warriors get the job done, find a way. It was a defense optional kind of a game, but the Warriors were able to get the job done with their offense, which is something that many times this year they've been unable to do. So again, not the most spectacular of victories, but a win is a win is a win is a win is a win with this team. And if you got to score 132 to the Hornets 125, then just figure out a way to get it done, because too often the Warriors have not figured out a way to get it done here in the early part of this season.
Yeah, what's the motto of the Warriors so far this season? We don't rate wins, and yeah, it was an ugly one, and a happy New Year's Eve. Kind of an awkward start time and tip-off time. But, usually this time it's like, all right, I'm just getting back from the gym. I'll make some lunch, but good to be on Dubs OT early in the day.
Yeah, and we appreciate everybody filing in and on YouTube here, and the comments already rolling in here. So we'll get a heavy installment of Kyle's Clicks. We'll probably keep this thing going for about anywhere between an hour to maybe 90 minutes. We'll probably kill it at about 2:00. Pretty much no matter where we are, but it is good to have everybody here and close out 2025 strong. And look, the Warriors find a way to get themselves to 2-1 on the road trip. I know that the game in Toronto on Sunday, especially the end, it was kind of a game that felt a little bit like this game where the offense is free flowing both ways, and it looks at a couple of different points as if the Warriors are just going to take control and turn it into a semi blowout. But I put it out there on social media, and we'll get into some of the specifics here as we roll through the next hour plus. But I mean, I think today is about as close to the Warriors being able to coast and win a game as they can get on the road. Now, we've seen them win some kind of ugly games that they've turned into maybe 15 to 20 plus point blowout games, at different points at home. Utah game stands out from a little while ago. And anyway, they've been able to do it at home with some big third quarters. The Orlando game from last week, when everybody was watching the Niners take on the Colts, they kind of turned that one into a blowout with a big hot stretch. Indiana early in the year, but on the road, it just they just are not good enough to build a 15 to 20 point lead and just win by 10 to 15. It's just not in this team's DNA. But again, I don't necessarily want to be too critical of them for not having that in their DNA on an afternoon where they do find a way, led by the shooting, to be able to get the job done. I mean, 24 3-point makes on 49 attempts. So you're talking 49% from 3-point range, Kyle, in this game. And, led by Steph, 5 for 10. Brandon Pajemski. How about Brandon Pajemski saving the Warriors in the fourth quarter with 3 big 3-point makes? He ended up 5 for 7. And Charlotte shot it pretty well, 16 of 40 for 40%. But you can get good looks from 3 against Charlotte. We always talk about this when teams go up against the Warriors and hit shots, even though the Warriors have been a good 3-point defensive team in terms of the stats. If you leave a team wide open, they're going to get, they're going to hit the good looks, even teams that at times can struggle to shoot. And I think today was a case where the Warriors, I give them credit for working their offense into a rhythm against a bad 3-point shooting defense of the Hornets, to where they were getting good looks and they were knocking them down. And ultimately they outshot some other mistakes in this game, which is something that we haven't really seen them necessarily be able to do a lot.
Yeah, I mean, they still had how many 19 turnovers, still way too many. But yeah, I mean, Pods, it all started with that 1 foot kind of floating 3-point shot to beat the shot clock, and he hit 2 more in the fourth quarter to give them a boost there. But how about Guy Santos, the Energizer Bunny? He kind of pops up every now and then, but had some really, really critical minutes, and honestly was super productive, going 5 for 6 and 3 for 4 from the 3-point line with a plus 15, good for second on the team.
Yeah, you always look, and I think the points off turnovers were also even more problematic for the Warriors in this one. The 19 turnovers, I mean, that's a horrendous number. Again, and Charlotte's not a good defensive team. It's not like Charlotte's pressuring the ball to force a lot of these turnovers. They were, I thought today, much more of the careless variety. And 28 points off of the turnovers, which is just an astronomical amount of points to give up. So it was live ball turnovers. It was turnovers going back the other way for buckets with regularity. So to see the Warriors outshoot the mistakes in that vein, they outshoot getting hit in the paint to the tune of 56 to 32. And, they were able to win a game. The defense optional part is not surprising for me on an afternoon like this. I mean, it was the third game in 4 days, and I guess Fitz on the broadcast was talking, it's 3.5 days, whatever. I mean, just go win the damn games. And I think, you look as you start to separate from, this trip being 2-1 and the 3-0 homestand that preceded it. It's 5 out of 6. And we talked about it when the Warriors got beat in Phoenix 2 weeks ago. And it really felt like this team was at a pivot point, and where things could, at one of a couple of pivot points in the early going of this season, but at a point where they were 2 games under 500 for the first time. And with the games that were ahead, they had to find a way to get 5 of the 6. Like 4 to me wasn't going to be good enough, because that would have just put you back at 500 going into the new year. So to get 5 of 6, and it really, you could make the case probably should have been 6 of 6. But again, how many times have we said, hey, the Warriors, wow, they should have, they went 4-2 and it could have been 6-0, or they went 3-3. Like to get to 5-1, I do think is significant. And again, even though it wasn't perfect, even though you're taking advantage of some lesser opponents for parts of this, or injury depleted opponents, you handle the business. You didn't slip up at home. You figured out a way to beat Phoenix and Orlando. You handled your business against Dallas in a game that wasn't really pretty. You handled your business in Brooklyn. And today, those are 2 games where it's just, I'm sorry, you can't lose all the games that the Warriors have lost to this point and then say, Brooklyn on the second of a back-to-back is going to be really tough on the road. No, go and beat Brooklyn. And it's the same thing today. I know Charlotte's got some dynamic young players, and Brandon Miller's really good. Knipple's good. Say that 3 times fast. Knipple. I
like him.
Really good. Really good. And so they've got some young talent, but again, they're not a good defensive team. So if you have to go win the game with your offense, then go win the game with your offense. Like, zero excuses. Like, you can't look at every single freaking game against every single freaking opponent and say, and just start hyperventilating about, like, at some point you got to go out and win and win at a 75 to 80% clip. And, exactly. I mean, Brooklyn's 10-20 coming into play, or coming out of the game the other night. Charlotte's 11-22 now. Like those games need to be wins, even if they aren't necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing. But just just do enough. And the Warriors did enough. So, yeah, I don't want to, sit up here and act like all the Warriors' problems from the first 2.5 months of the season are fixed, because they clearly are not. But figuring out a way to win a couple of games here and 5 out of 6 when I think almost at any point you would have taken this 6-game stretch before the last 2 weeks, and the Warriors probably go 3-3 at best, given the way that they played against all opponents so far.
Yeah, and I think I remember telling you this, JD. I think it was on a Just Dubs, like what were the keys like going into this road trip, and I was saying that you need a more or a continued productive Jimmy Butler, and then consistency from your role players. Well, now you've seen consistency from Moody, Pods, and then get your odd third guy in there, whether it's posts. I mean, we've seen it from Trace Jackson Davis, we've seen it from Melton, we've seen it from Will Richard, and that was kind of what they were struggling with during that really bad stretch. It was Steph, it was sort of Jimmy Butler, and then it was like one odd guy. And but now you're really seeing a little bit more from. I mean, hell, even how Al Horford had another, I thought, decent night, but
he's looked a little bit better. He's looked a little better the last couple games he's played in.
He's found some comfort here. But no, it's just consistency from your 5 through 10 guys. A little bit more consistency there.
A little bit more consistency, and again, I also think we shouldn't bury the fact that you always have to look at the team's best players, win or lose. And Steph gets ignited to go in and play in hometown Charlotte, and to see his dad, and obviously calling the games for the Hornets television broadcast, and he just likes being back in Charlotte and playing there. And he sets the tone in this one with the 26 points and 5 of 10 from 3-point range. Like he was on it. And there were a couple points in this game where the Warriors were in a little bit of trouble. And I thought, well, Steph is not like, today's going to be one of those games that I'd almost bet Steph, if he has to, is not going to let them lose. And it, fortunately for the Warriors, didn't come down to that. But Steph's 26 huge. Again, the other thing that I do not think should be buried here is the fact that even though the Warriors are not really blowing teams out during this 5 of 6 stretch, Jimmy Butler has been far more aggressive in looking to score. And, he's always going to be looking to get the assist numbers. He's always going to be looking to move the ball and make the right basketball play. But, I go back to a couple of weeks ago where Steve Kerr said, hey, I got to put Jimmy Butler in better positions to be able to be more aggressive. And I think Steve has done that, but I also think the credit has to go to Jimmy Butler for, really, I think, receiving the message. And I don't know if there was a conversation that needed to be had after the loss to Phoenix a couple of weeks ago with this team 2 under, but Jimmy was not like, he can't just be a facilitator. Like, he has to be some semblance of a number 2 lead dog along with Steph as the alpha and the number 1. And I think we've seen Jimmy be much more of a true number 2 type offensive player for this team over the last couple of weeks. And I think that's important. And then today, we know it's been up and down for Draymond, and his December is not one that he would necessarily remember for a lot of great games, but Draymond was terrific in this game today. Knocking down a couple of threes, 12 assists, again, really taking advantage of some shitty Hornets defense with the ball movement. Yes, he, like Steph and Jimmy, who led the pack in terms of the turnovers. 12 of the 19 turnovers were Steph 5, Draymond 4, Jimmy Butler 3. I know in the chat they pointed out there were some offensive fouls that are part of the turnovers as well. But again, 28 points off the 19 turnovers. You're talking about a lot of live ball turnovers to boot there. But Draymond was fantastic in this game. And he played some 4 at the start. He was playing some 5 to close things out. So I think as we get into this one, and we'll get into some of the others here as well, because I think there's something that's starting to crystallize a little bit about this team and the players and maybe some roles for some of these guys moving forward here as we get into 2026. But Draymond, I think, got to give Draymond his flowers today. He was outstanding. Again, minus the turnovers, but that's something you could say for Steph and for Draymond and for Jimmy.
Yeah, and I mean, you can live with the fact that he had 4 turnovers if he's giving you 12 assists. But when you can't live with it is when he has 4 or 5 turnovers and kind of, grabbing his 7 rebounds, 5 assists, but then also shooting like 2 for 8 from the field. Okay, because then that's more going towards being an offensive liability rather than an impactful player on that side of the court.
No, so give Draymond his credit in this game. And look, Draymond should not be an offensive liability against everyone. Like, there are some games that are going to be bad matchups. There's going to be some games where he's not hitting shots. But, I think one of the more frustrating and confounding things about this Warriors team is the fact that even against some crappier opponents, they just never really truly can get into an offensive rhythm. Like you look at the NBA, if you watch the NBA on a daily basis, like, teams win games with their offense all the time. Even average offensive teams, during teams go in and, good teams go in and win 132 to 125 all the time against bad teams. If they're kind of going through the motions, if they don't really have a defensive intensity, whatever it is. And the Warriors seemingly aren't able to win games as consistently, it seems, as other teams are. Even mid to mediocre type teams are able to do, just with going in and playing, a quality offensive game. And again, you make 24 threes. That's the reason you're able to do it. And it is in some ways a little scary, because the Warriors won this game by 7 and they made 24 threes. If they make 21 threes, they end up losing the game by 2. And again, and that's, so it's not like all the problems are fixed or cured here, but, for them to be able to win a few more, they did this last year where they went in on the road and, if they were playing a bad team on the road, for the most part, they would go in and get the job done. And a lot of the time it wasn't like they needed some stellar defensive effort to be able to win the game. Now, you need the defensive effort if you're going to be good teams. You need the defensive effort if you're going to win playoff games. But to me, the ability to kind of coast, and again, we saw even today what what that can look like and how delicate it can be with a bad 4 or 5 minute stretch that can really, really screw up a game and have you lose. But I give the big 3 guys a lot of credit for the way that they played in this one. Again, it was defense optional, way too many turnovers early. Quentin Post hit a couple of big shots early. Give Quentin Post a nod. Although this was not a Quentin Post game, Kyle. This was not a Moses Moody game, but it wound up being a big-time Guy Santos game, as you mentioned. It wound up being a Will Richard game with Will Richard in the closing lineup for the Warriors. And it wound up being another DeAnthony Melton game, even though Melton ends up only playing 23 total minutes. So, and Podziemski wasn't great in the first 2.5 to 3 quarters, but hit some big shots in the fourth quarter, ended up scoring 19 points, which was tied with Jimmy for the second most on the team. But the Quentin Post couple of shots he hit early, the Guy Santos 3-point makes, the Pods 3-point makes in the fourth quarter, really, I thought, turned a bad game into a good game overall for Podziemski. I mean, you score 19 points on 6 of 9 and 5 of 7 from 3. That's a massive game for this Warriors team that so desperately needs that. But it was, so Pods helped them down the stretch, but it was a Will Richard and DeAnthony Melton, I think, helping to overcome for the fact that it really wasn't a Moses Moody. It wasn't a Moses Moody type of a game or a GP2 type of a game, although he had 9 points, less impactful. But what we're starting to see here is, Guy Santos helps you win a lot of these games against the middle of the pack teams, just with his energy and his hustle and his willingness to defend and occasionally knock down some shots. Like Guy Santos maybe isn't going to be the reason you beat Oklahoma City, or Denver, but you got to beat the Charlottes and the Brooklyns and the Dallases and those kind of teams too. And so, Guy is somebody that I think has proven to be a necessary commodity for this Warriors team in the regular season. And then I'll also throw Will Richard in, because Will Richard is, I mean, he
starts to run around and toss his body all over the place. Yeah.
I mean, he is just like, have we reached the point? And look, we know, have we reached the point? I don't want to be hyperbolic about this, and you feel free to weigh in on the chat. Like, have we reached the point where Will Richard is he more useful than Moses Moody? Like, is he more useful? Like, it just like, and again, Will Richard's done it in, hasn't done it for as long, but Moody certainly hasn't done it as consistently. I mean, the thing that I always think, and you can throw Pods into this group as well, although Pods is in year 3. Like, Brandon Podziemski was a much more useful player as a rookie than like Jonathan Kuminga or Moses Moody were like in their 3rd year. And now you look at Will Richard, and it's like Will Richard is a more useful player as a rookie than any of these guys have been in their rookie years among the Warriors draft pick, let alone their 2nd or maybe even 3rd years, with the exception of Podziemski, who was a contributor to winning in his first couple of years, although it has been up and down to start each of the last couple of seasons. But I don't know, man, like Will Richard we're already to the point where it's like, we know he needs to play, but is it to the point where like you trust the things that he does as things that are, more able to be done more consistently than even Moody? Because Moody is just so damn inconsistent. It feels like Richard can make more of an impact on the game even when he's not scoring, where Moody, if he isn't scoring, it's like, yeah, you like his defense and his toughness and the like, but it just feels like when Moody's out there a lot and he's not scoring, he's kind of killing you.
Yeah. I still like, and Moody is definitely matchup based, because there are times where he really gets involved on the defensive end and still does make those hustle plays. But in some matchups, the quicker guards that you've noted, JD, in the past are able to get by Moody. Like, he can look a little slow, but against maybe, those slower guards, he can annoy them a little bit. I think I would give the nod to Moody over Will Richard on, and this could be controversial, on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, I think Will Richard has been a more consistent shot maker. I mean, Moody has gone through stretches where he'll go like 1 for 6, 1 for 7 in a game, even. I mean, just back a few games ago, he was slumping. He was slumping really bad. But so I think if you wanted to put Will Richard in the starting lineup, it wouldn't be like a negative. It wouldn't be like, oh, no, you're missing out on Moses Moody, right? Like you wouldn't miss out on that.
Well, and it's not even so much, and I know a few people in the chat have mentioned, like, do you start Will over Moody? Like, it's not even about who starts or finishes. Like, I would probably still start Moody, because he's used to playing with Steph and with Draymond and with Jimmy, and Quentin Post has been part of that group. And look, Quentin Post has found himself in the starting lineup, but if he isn't playing well, he doesn't wind up playing a lot of minutes. I still think, because you need a lot of these guys, because the Warriors still have so many players that are roughly at a similar talent level, that I think starting a couple of guys, even if you're intent on maybe others that are playing better in a given game, finishing the game, I still think you need to absorb minutes. Like it's not a question of, and I'm sure some will probably disagree with me when I say this, but could Will Richard play a little bit more? Yeah, I think he could play a little bit more. And I'm looking at what he ended up with in this game. He only played 17 minutes. Guy Santos only played 17 minutes. But I think, could the 17 get to 22 or 25 some games? Yes. But I also don't think that any of these guys, Richard or Guy Santos or any of them, Melton, even at this point, as he comes back from injury, like I just don't, if you start, the answer is not, well, they're playing well and they're 17 to 20, start playing them 30 to 35 at the expense of others getting, DNPs basically. Like it's not play Will Richard 30 and then not play Moody, or play Moody, Moody 6 or 8. Like it's, you give Moody a chance with the starters to see if he's got it going, because, one out of every 3 games, Moody hits shots. And, and then that's a night where you want to see if Moody's got it. And if he doesn't, I think maybe the best way to say it. So I wouldn't look to mess with the starting lineup at this point, because they finally found some consistency with the starting lineup. And even though it's not a perfect starting lineup, even though Moody's been up and down in that starting lineup, and even though Quentin Post has kind of been a non-factor since he's been entrenched as the starter, or less of a factor, at least offensively, than we've seen him be before. But I think there's something to be said for the consistency of, you found a set starting lineup, even if it's not a perfect starting lineup, and you stuck with it. And now you look up and you're on this winning streak that basically coincides with the starting lineup. And you look at it, same starting lineup for the 7th straight game. So the Warriors are now 5-2 with this starting lineup since Steve Kerr went to it. And you're talking about the loss in Toronto and the 1-point loss in Phoenix on the weird play at the end of the game. So clearly the consistency of the way Steve has built the starting lineup, and then peppered in others. And look, it's been different players on different nights, and it's been shorter bursts and subs basically every 3 or 4 minutes, as opposed to every 6 to 8 minutes. So Steve Kerr's really handled it a little bit differently. But I think the way to put it, and yeah, Moody is, the problem for Moses Moody, who is, again, solid. I don't want to act like I'm crushing Moses Moody, but the problem for Moses Moody is he's not tall enough to be that big wing that you really like. If he was 6'7" or 6'8", you'd be like, all right, yeah, you got something here. Like you want that, or if he was a little bit quicker, right? So he doesn't have the height. So he doesn't have the height of being like one of those true wings, and he also doesn't have the quickness to guard the quicker of the guards, even though he's been kind of the primary point of attack defender. So I wouldn't look to make a move in terms of changing the starting lineup at this point. But I think the one thing that I would say with Will Richard and Guy, I think the Warriors are starting to find the guys that are keepers. And I think Will Richard is proving himself to be a keeper that makes others expendable. And I think that could extend to, as the Warriors try to figure out how to improve the roster. And of course, Kuminga name comes up because he's going to be the primary salary that's going to go in any kind of deal come January 15th to February 5th. But the reality is other players are probably going to determine more what player the Warriors get back. Other players not named Kuminga and picks are probably going to determine more what type of player the Warriors get back than just Kuminga. So I think Richard makes, and we already knew this, but I think Richard makes Buddy Hield more expendable. I mean, Buddy Hield didn't play today. I think Will Richard makes Moses Moody more expendable. And so that's kind of where I was going with it. In terms of like, if you're going to wind up getting that wing player, that's going to plug in and be able to start, right, with Steph and Draymond and Jimmy, and whether it's Quentin Post or eventually somebody else. So I think Moody and Buddy for contract purposes, and I think Moody is somebody that is probably in the more willing to look to trade bucket, especially now with Melton, because Melton plays some 2-3 also, and you're going to want to play Melton over Buddy. You're going to want to play, Will Richard, I think, every game. And you may, on a lot of these games, want to play Will Richard over even Moody. So I don't know. I think that we're starting to see that Moody could be a little bit more expendable for his $11.5 million contract. And then you add Buddy Hield, and then you add Kuminga, and then you try to figure out what type of player you can get back in return, or maybe two players that you could get back in return for those three players going out.
I mean, I do also think that, with Richard's play and we've seen now Kerr in back-to-back games go with the closing lineup with Melton and Richard, with Curry, Butler, and Draymond. So then it kind of like if Moody's not even going to be in the closing line, like he's just kind of there as your starting guy, and you can go to Melton and Richard in your closing, and that again makes Moody more expendable. And then you look at the closing lineup and you go, okay, well, now I could play either Melton or Richard. Whoever's having the better night, usually you'll probably go with Melton if he's playing, and if it's not a back-to-back. And then whoever that guy is that you acquire in the trade, hopefully will be that other filler in that closing lineup.
Yeah, you hope that that's a guy. I mean, the perfect world scenario is you get a player that is 100% going to be in your closing lineup. And again, that's a tough ask to say, hey, we're going to give up Kuminga, who's not playing at all, and Moody, who's a starter but kind of disappointing, and Buddy Hield, who's not playing at all right now and playing it's hard to say, hey, take two of our guys that aren't playing at all and a third guy who's starting but is in many ways being supplanted by a second-round draft pick rookie. But hey, give us something really good for that. Give us something really good for those three guys, because, Kuminga makes 22 and Moody gets it up to 33 with his 11 or 34. And then, Buddy Hield's making his 9 or whatever. Hey, give us a $40+ million player for those three guys. And unless it's a player that another team is desperately going to want off of in terms of maybe some future salary, or they really like Jonathan Kuminga as a prospect and like Moses Moody as a useful NBA player that could either be part of a rotation on any team, which I do think Moody could be part of a rotation on any team, or somebody that eventually would have value around the league to be traded by the team that maybe he goes to another team. So I just think as we're looking at wins and losses, and we're looking at, changes in the rotation, because I think, and Steve mentioned this post game, and I didn't even realize he mentioned it the other night post game about, I guess he got asked about Kuminga, and our buddy Gene had brought up Kuminga, and I just kind of said, well, he isn't really a guy that can only, he's proven himself to not be the kind of player that can only play 10 minutes. They've tried to get him to be a guy that can play, 7 minutes a half of, 7 minutes of hustle and energy and rebounding and slashing. And he's never really wanted to do that, which I think is part of the problem. But as Steve said the other night, he just doesn't, he needs to get in a rhythm. He needs to have the ball in his hands. He needs all these things. So Guy Santos can just play 5 minutes and go out there and hustle and maybe makes 3, maybe gets a rebound, maybe defend, or he can not play, or he can play 10 minutes, or he can play 15 minutes. But that doesn't make Guy Santos like we were having the discussion about the other day. It doesn't make Guy Santos your your seventh man or your sixth man. He's still your ninth or your 10th or your 11th man, because some nights he's just not going to have it, even though he helps you in a lot. So Guy's a keeper, but he's a keeper more in that 9 to 12 or 13 range, as opposed to somebody that you say, oh, he's a keeper and he's my seventh or, 6th, 7th, 8th man every night. But if you can take some of those other guys that maybe aren't your 4th through 6th or 4th through 7th, and you can package them for somebody who can truly be your 4th, and then maybe Melton's your 5th, and then Pajemski's your 6th, then you can start to maybe piece it together. Will Richards your 7, but if you have a better top 4, top 5, if you're telling me Pajemski and some of these other guys are more of your 6 to 8 kind of guys, then I think that's where maybe you could look to have the whole thing improve.
Yeah, I'm like guys like your Guy Santoses and your Pat Spencers. They're kind of like the cards you keep tucked up your sleeve. And and when you find yourself playing at 10 a.m. in Charlotte, that's kind of when you can play them, because you're going to need a guy that's just going to go out there, get like 3 offensive rebounds and hit a couple threes and run around the court and hustle and bring the energy to the game that way. But no, they're not. Yeah, they're definitely not guys you need to play each and every night. Or you could play them, see what they do for like 2 to 3 minutes. If they give you something good, if they don't, no harm, no foul. And just going back to Kuminga's not like that guy that you could play in a short spurt and because he's never been that guy that finds his rhythm super early. You know what I mean, JD?
No, And again, part of it is, look, he's a $22 million player now, and he thinks he's beyond that. And I don't even necessarily blame him for that. Like, where I would have an issue with Kuminga is that he was so unwilling to even try to be that guy year 2, year 3, year 4, especially year 3 and year 4. And so, but again, that's done now. He's going to be gone. Let's see if they can figure out the best, possible trade scenario with him and others to bring back a good player. And, that ultimately is going to determine, in my mind, that's going to be the determining factor as to like Jonathan Kuminga's tenure with the Warriors. Like, it was never going to work with the Warriors. Like, I think that was apparent at the level that he wanted it to, or Joe Lacob wanted it to, or whatever. The whole heir apparent, 2 timelines, leader of the superstar of the second timeline, like whatever, like that was laughable. Like, that was never going to be it. The question was always, could he be a productive player for this team and in a certain role? And you know what, it's done, it's over. Again, we don't have to go back and relitigate it. It's just, we're now, time flies. I mean, we're 2 weeks away from January 15th here tomorrow, as we hit the new year. And then you add 3 weeks to where, from that point, the Warriors can, look to move him up until the deadline. So I think it's going to be, I just think we're starting to see more of, Melton is a keeper. And how does Melton, Melton's got to hit some shots. Again, Melton's a really good player, but he's got to hit shots. He hit a couple today. He's got to hit shots if he's going to be a guy that's going to be in the closing lineup every single game. History would tell you throughout his career that he will become a little bit more consistent with the shot. I understand he's hard to get in a rhythm, and he's been out with a bunch of injuries and all that. But this Warriors team just isn't good enough, unfortunately, to carry DeAnthony Melton. Good as he is at everything else, they aren't good enough to carry DeAnthony Melton if he's going to be a complete albatross offensively. They're just not able to do that for anybody that's not Steph and Jimmy and Draymond. And look, obviously Steph is never that guy. Jimmy sometimes is, and Draymond too often is. And so because you have a couple of guys that are your, in your big three that sometimes are a liability offensively in terms of scoring, that extra means you can't do it with other guys on the roster.
And especially with how many open 3-point shots that the other two guys on the court, that's not, Steph or Draymond, get. Like, you need to hit those open 3-point shots at a more consistent rate.
Yeah, no, you definitely do. So, all right, let's get to some Kyle's clicks here. Good start to the show. We've got about 40 minutes. We appreciate everybody watching on YouTube, the KNBR YouTube page. We go YouTube only here for the New Year's Eve. I'm calling New Year's Eve a holiday. I guess technically today's not a holiday. It sure as shit feels like a holiday. Oh, am I allowed to? What's in the JD Red Cup? Kyle, you look. You're in the Daly City Studios again. You're in another part of the Daly City Studio.
I am.
Again, I was going to ask you what's in your cup, but you're working, man. You got water. You got H2O.
I got my water. I got the good old fashioned, old reliable H2O.
Kyle with the Kyle hydrating ahead of New Year's Eve. You got to be hydrated. Got to be hydrated for.
Although I do have to put, I probably should eat a little bit more. I only had like a protein bar, and Jordan, honestly, so JD, so I come here and then there's like 3 other people working here. So 4 people, it's me, it's Jacob, it's Jordan, it's shit. Dan Tunn. Yeah, no, we have a crew right now.
I would call it the Boyquarium, but Jordo's in there, so it's actually
shout out Jordan. Yeah, telling us all our boy problems. It's great.
Okay. Nice. Always fun.
Sorry, Jordan. So
yeah, well, it's great to have everybody. It's great. Yeah, that's more than I would have thought would have been working here on New Year's Eve. But I guess the fine folks at these sports leader not treating today as if it's a full blown holiday, as we are here with Dubs OT. Here on the Sports Leader. All right, let's get to the chats. Let's run through it. Appreciate everybody chiming in here. 19 turnovers and a Curry tweaked ankle. Yeah, Mickey D, but they survived. Well, and we didn't mention the Curry tweaked ankle. And I mean, if that was the one thing you're thinking, this team finally builds some momentum. 5 of 6. You got 10 of the next 11 at home. You got 11 home games in January. Their one road game is against the Clippers down in Inglewood next Monday. And so other than that, they aren't going anywhere other than down to LA until basically, I think January 21st, I think is when they actually, so they've got 3, which is 3 weeks from today. So they've got 3 weeks basically where their only road game is down to Inglewood to take on the Clippers, down to LA to take on the Clippers. This is exactly when you can't have a Steph Curry ankle tweak to miss a week, even or miss 3. Like, no, they got to come out, and it's OKC on Friday, and it's Utah on Saturday while everybody's watching the Niner game, and then the Clippers, who are playing a little bit better, by the way. The Clippers have won 5 in a row. I don't know if you've.
Oh wow,
Kyle, I don't know if you stopped paying attention when the Clippers were 6-21, but I believe they're now 11-21 because they've won 5 in a row.
Good for them. Yeah. After I saw
you
the
had
Clippers,
stopped paying attention. You had stopped paying attention, didn't you, Kyle?
Well, I mean, after I saw the Clippers muster up 79 points against the Warriors, I was like, "What the hell is this?"
You know what else I learned? And you know what else I learned last night? I was doing some kind of I view New Year's as kind of everybody says Christmas, but to me, it's a little bit more New Year's. Is really when I start digging in and looking at just I really start looking at the standings more, and I start looking at, who's beating who and just different trends as to how teams are in the position or why teams are in the position they're in. Do you know what the Lakers record is in clutch games off the top of your head?
The Warriors?
The Lakers. No, the Lakers.
The
Lakers.
It has to be really good. It has to be really good.
They're 20-11. The overall, the right. Lakers are 20-11. They're 10-0 in clutch games.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
They're 10-0. So they're 10-11 in non-clutch games, which is incredible. They've played 21 of their 31 or whatever it is, 30, 31. Yeah, 31. 21 of their 31 of non-clutch games. But they've won all 10 of their clutch games. The Warriors, I think, got credit for a clutch win today, even though it was a loose.
Jesus.
So they're up to 8-11 in clutch games. I think they got credit. I think they're up to 8-11 with the win in this one. So, but two things. The Clippers are playing a little better, 5 wins in a row, and the Lakers are 10-0. So for everybody, it's like, God, the Lakers don't really, like, depending upon when you watch the Lakers, it's like, God, the Lakers really don't look that different than the Warriors, other than like Luka. Like, right. They've won every clutch game they've played so far this season. Now we'll see if that continues with Reeves going to be out for a while and LeBron now 41. So yeah, we'll see. But all right, let's keep it moving here. Reed the Steed, great to see you, Reed the Steed. Good win, but got a little too close for comfort. I think that's just the way it's going to be. I think it's just the way it's going to be. I think we all have to just absorb and accept the fact that this is just the way it's going to be. And we've seen the Warriors lose games like today so often that I think you want to just, when you win a game like today, just appreciate it for the fact that you didn't lose the game the way they would have lost the game today. Because we've seen it. I mean, just too freaking often we've seen it. But yeah, appreciate you, Reed the Steed. Great to see you back in the chat. Dig'em, here is my first take. Brandon Miller is just a more talented JK. Brandon Miller's a lot better than JK. I don't know. Brandon Miller's more skilled than Jonathan Kuminga. He's got a better handle than Jonathan Kuminga. Like, I don't know. I don't even really. Brandon Miller feels more like a guard also than I don't know. Brandon Miller plays to me more like a guard than Jonathan Kuminga, who almost has to play like a big.
Yeah. No, I was just about to say, I think Brandon Miller's more of a 3-level scorer. I mean, his 3-point shot is still coming along, but he feels more like a 3-level scorer, where JK is like, it has to be within 12 feet.
Well, yeah. Now JK doesn't think it has to be within 12
right.
feet.
Well, right. Right.
But and look, Miller's not. He's 33% from 3 this year, which is down. Actually, he was 36% for his career, so he's down 3% off his career number from 3-point range. But I don't know. I just, to me, he's got a better handle. And he just seems to me he's got more guard skills or wing skills, and I think Kuminga's skills are more because of the lack of handle, wing to big skill. Like, again, we always say this about Kuminga, and I don't want to get off on a tangent like we seemingly do on every show in some aspect of trading Kuminga or Kuminga's skill set or whatever. But if Kuminga really committed to like rebounding, defense, slashing all the way to the rim, not taking the 3 ball, completely eliminating anything in the mid-range, and getting his buckets off of the other actions, basically like in the dunker spot. Yeah. Like he could average probably 12 points a game doing that with a real high percentage shooting and help this team. But he just doesn't want to do that. He wants to do the shit that Brandon Miller was doing today. I mean, and probably looks at a guy like Brandon Miller and thinks he's better than Brandon Miller.
Yeah.
But
we'll also sees Brandon Miller put up 27 shots and thinks, I kind of want to put up 27 shots.
Put up 27 shots and take your L and go be 11-22. But yeah, no, I think Brandon Miller's. I mean, it's funny. I don't even think of Brandon Miller and Kuminga. Like, I just don't even think of them in the same, like, I just think Brandon Miller's a way better prospect. Yeah. Like, I just don't, again, maybe I'm, he's raw and has a ways to go and has to stay healthy, but it's funny. I would not put them even in the same prospect category at this point, but interesting. San Jose Jazz fan 8, so many dumb passes, turnovers, points conceded off of turnovers. Warriors look like a pickup team that never played together before and never will again. Yeah, it does look bad. When it is bad, it looks effing bad. And today I think was one of the games where it to me, the turnovers are even worse because there's so little ball pressure. Like, it's not like this was not the Toronto game. Like, Toronto was ball pressuring with wing players that overmatched the Warriors physically. That's not what this was. This was, Charlotte's got some athletes, but Charlotte does not have, and I think that's why the Warriors were so comfortable offensively, even though they were turning it over too much. They were very comfortable offensively because they weren't going up against the body types, basically, that caused them the problems like Toronto did. So I think when you look at it, it's a matter of long full court dumb passes, Jeff.
No, I take my eye off the screen for like 1 second. Next thing I know, Draymond after a rebound throws a full court. I'm like, oh my god! Immediate turnover.
And Charlotte's already got the ball. And Charlotte,
yeah. Well, I was like, it's like, what happened? I just saw Draymond get a rebound.
No, that's happened a couple. That's happened a couple of times. No question.
Actually, good update by Reed the Steed here.
No question. Steph says he's good regarding the ankle. Yeah, good news there. I mean, he will know, but again, we're getting back to the point here now, Kyle, where and again, it's going to be no excuses on this show, but we are getting back to the point where the Warriors are going to start complaining about the schedule now, right? 3 and 4. Now it's going to be what? It's going to be 4 and 6. It's going to be 5 and 7 because of the back-to-back against OKC and Utah. And then it's going to be 6 and 9 with the game down in LA against the Clippers. And we're back to the point where it's basically every other day. They've got the 2 games wedged into this weekend, and then it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Monday. I mean, it is every other day with a couple of back-to-backs. That's the one thing as you look with optimism at 5 of the last 6, 2 over 500. The one thing you start to look at, though, is now the schedule is going to start to get more like it was when the Warriors were at their worst and just complaining about it all the time. Now, home games, no travel, all that, but you got a home back-to-back here to start this stretch, and you've got a home back-to-back to end this stretch. Erwin Kwong, don't the Warriors stay in California for the month of January?
Yeah.
Not the whole month.
Damn near, yeah.
Not the whole month, but the first 20 days of January.
Yeah. On the 22nd, they go to Dallas to play the Mavs. At
Dallas, and then they go from the Bay to Dallas, and they go from Dallas to Minnesota. They play 2 games in Minnesota so they go Thursday, Saturday, Monday, with a Saturday, Monday around the championship weekend in the NFL in Minnesota, and then they go to Utah before they come home and play the Pistons to close out January on January 30th. But yeah, for the first 20 days, basically 19 days from the 2nd to the 20th, 19 days, the Warriors are going to play 10 home games, and in 11, and the one away game is going to be at the Clippers coming up on Monday. So yeah, the first 3 weeks of the month, they are there. Dr. Piss, official Dr. Piss. We can say that because we're not on the radio. We're not losing the license. What are the Warriors' odds against Oklahoma City Friday? What do they need to do to beat those frauds? Well, they've been more beatable. They've been more beatable since the Warriors have last faced them. Look, to beat OKC, you gotta force them into some tough 3-point looks. You gotta not foul Shea. You gotta make them take some semi-contested or contested 3-point shots. You have to try to pack the paint, and then you gotta move the ball and play the in-between game. I think offensively to be able to beat them. The Warriors were non-competitive against them in the first game back in the middle of November. They were pretty competitive against them
And that was without Steph, I think, too.
Yeah, they were competitive against him without Steph, or was that in early December?
Yeah. It was like the one Seth Curry game where he had like 14.
on December the 2nd. So that week after Thanksgiving. It's crazy how all the days do kind of run together once you get into like between Thanksgiving and like Friday. Once you get into the new year, I mean, it's like, God, what day is this? What week is this? What month is this? Against OKC, it's going to be tough. I mean, they're not going to be favored, obviously, to win. They're probably going to be, I don't know, 5.5, 6 point underdogs against the Thunder. And, you got to not turn it over. You got to contest in the paint, not foul Shea, and then not just give completely wide open 3-point looks. And then, move the ball against the length. And the size and the defense, the elite defense that Oklahoma City can have when they're on. So it's going to be a good challenge. But I think winning 5 of the 6 in front of the game against Oklahoma City is important, because even if you don't get that one, then you got the Utah game. And look, this beginning of this stretch for the Warriors is going to be, I think, more about. It's going to be more about how, make sure you beat Utah and don't fuck up against the Clippers. And even though the Clippers are playing better, and beat the Bucks and beat the Kings. And, it's, again, not a lot of these games. Atlanta is not a slouch coming in towards this. They play Portland again, which we know has been
God. Our kryptonite.
The Warriors' kryptonite. They play the Knicks, who are great. Like, they play Charlotte again. They play Toronto again in this stretch against toward the January 20th. They play Miami, which is always going to give you a competitive game, and for whatever reason Miami's played the Warriors better in the Bay than most teams have in recent times. So I know everybody's kind of looking at this stretch like it's just a picnic, like, hey, they're home and they're rolling. And the one thing I would say is, you look at the last 6 and you look at how difficult, even though the Warriors have played better, you still look at how difficult earning a lot of these wins has been. Like, you can't take any of these for granted. Like, any of these are games where the Warriors can just show up and roll the balls out and win. Not even Utah, really, can you do that against anymore. This is a slightly better Utah team than you've seen. So I think as you kind of look at it, you're going to, the OKC game's going to be tough, but you better beat Utah. And you better, the Clipper game is not what the Clipper game might have been had you played them a month ago. But you got to go handle that game and beat Milwaukee and beat the Kings and really get this thing off to a 4-1 start. I think needs to be the goal. Even if you lose to OKC, like, get those next 4, because that following week, when it's Atlanta and Portland and the Knicks and Charlotte again and Miami and Toronto, like, that's not just, again, roll the balls out and you're going to win a lot of these games, and you're going to start to have a lot of the trade deadline rumors and things start to pop up as well during that second week that the Warriors are going to be home. What else do we have here? Let's Florida Dubs fan Santos looking real good. Kerr, please give that man more minutes. He has not only the energy, but the size we need more often than not liking Melton's play lately, and not just talking about shots. Like, I think Anthony Melton's been pretty good other than the shots. I think he's been pretty impactful other than the shooting, which I think has been important for this Warriors team. I mean, to me, it's been that's been the number one and honestly only issue. Maybe a turnover here or there, but it's finishing and the ability to knock down open shots that I think take D'Anthony Melton's game to another level. Could he play a little more? Maybe. Yeah, maybe. But I think the key, and maybe I'm proven otherwise, but I think the key to Guy Santos being successful, and I think the key maybe to a lot of these guys being able to be successful for the Warriors, is it's the less is more component to it. It's the 17 to 20 minutes of Guy Santos most nights is enough for him to make an impact, but also not so much that he gets exposed. And so I think and the Warriors have a bunch of guys that I think are in that category. So I don't know that the answer is necessarily more Guy. I do think the answer is Guy should play. And I think, it's kind of similar to Will Richard. Although I think that's something to continue to monitor too. Good Draymond seems like Kerr takes it game by game for the minutes. Yeah, I mean, he clearly has gotten to a point where he knows the starting group, which I think is important, and he knows who's available in terms of like guys they're trying to rest. Where's Melton? Where's Horford? All that. You kind of pencil it in around that, and then you look at the matchup. And I think there's been more of. Podziemski's going to play no matter what. Will Richard's going to play no matter what. And, Melton's going to play no matter what among the bench guys. And then it's kind of, all right, how much Guy? Is it going to be a TJD game versus a Quentin Post game? Is it going to be, is it going to be Pat Spencer and for how long? So I think all of those things are factoring in, but it has felt a little bit more, Kyle, game specific, I think, for Steve Kerr of late.
Oh yeah, I mean, you go one night from playing Trey Jackson-Davis 15 to 20 minutes, you throw him in there for 5. He is not effective at all. You take him out, doesn't even play the rest of the game. So it's that kind of, all right, how effective is this guy going to be? We know they kind of need the bodies because they don't just have enough guys to consistently play, or they want to stretch out to 30 minutes a night. So yeah, it's kind of like, all right, let's throw in this guy 5 minutes, see how he does. If he doesn't, he probably won't see minutes the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think that's the way that it probably needs to be managed out at this point. So you look at it, and again, it's still kind of a hodgepodge. And for how long? The Warriors lose a couple. They lose one of these games that you think they should win, or that they're going to need to win. It's still very fragile. Like that. That's the one thing I don't. As we get to 2026, I just don't want to act as if this 5 out of 6 has cured all of the issues that plague the Warriors to where now they're all right. They're a contender for, a top 6 or top 4 with the team that they have. They absolutely are not. But what they are figuring out is how to be effective with what they have in the meantime until they can look to make trades. And that was something that absolutely had to be done, because if it hadn't been done, then it would have been a situation where, you would start to wonder what's worth even freaking fighting for the remainder of this season. Like, they were 2 games under 500. So EB here, it's all about matchups for the bench players. It's always about matchups, and maybe Kerr's done better of late at figuring that out. I don't know. I just think when you settle on a starting lineup as he has, even if it's not necessarily the best starting lineup, but when you settle on one, you can figure out everything around it, and I think that makes it a little bit easier to kind of pick and choose based on matchups with a lot of the other guys, and seeing what you've got there. All righty, Bennett Roth. So how might the Dubs go about acquiring Brandon Miller? Tell you what, once the big 3 retires, Lacob should take a hard look at trying to sign Miller as a free agent. That's not going to be a question for 2025 or 2026 at this point. So again, I say this all the time. I don't think anybody should worry about the big 3 retiring until the big 3 retires, until it truly is over and it's over. There's going to be a lot of things that can happen between now and then. It is at least, I would say it's at least a year and a half away, but it's more than a year and a half away. I think with Steph, at least. We'll see where Jimmy and Draymond are at in a year and a half, but Steph right now, as we get ready to go into 2026 and my God, he's going to be 38 coming up in March on March the 14th, which is just 2.5 months away now. But Steph still very clearly looks like somebody that is going to be going beyond the 2 years. So worry about it. Worry about it in 2027 is probably what I would say. Worry about it in 2027 at a minimum. It might not be a worry until 2028. But again, this team's going to have to tear this shit down to the studs. Like it's just it's not going to be pretty. I mean, it's unless they're able to acquire somebody unless they're able to acquire a guy that just kind of turns into a star, like a young player, like kind of like OKC gets Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who didn't project to be a star and wound up being a star, like that. Like if that's how it probably can be bridged, but I mean, it's definitely not something you're going to be planning for. I mean, OKC would look back and say, yeah, we identified him and made the right trades and got all these picks. And they did they did. But you know what else Oklahoma City did? They tore the shit down to the studs and sucked for like 3 years. But even after they got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So that is something that I just don't, the day will come and Warrior fans are going to have to accept it. But I just don't think anybody should be worried about in the moment of what can this team do this year? What can this team do this year and next? I just don't think anybody should be worried about 28 and 29 and 32. And like, guess what? The Warriors are probably going to suck for a couple of years. Like, just like every team that goes through that. I mean, look at, the Celtics are an unbelievable example also. I mean, think of like the Celtics, and I've heard this referenced at different points. Remember when the Celtics traded Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen left, and they traded Paul Pierce, they traded Kevin Garnett to Brooklyn. They got picks and they did all this. They did all this shit, and the picks turn into Tatum and Brown. Yeah, and they aren't good for a couple years, and they do their thing. They in a lot of ways they did everything perfectly, right? They traded the old guys, even though it was unpopular. They knew they were done. They traded the old guys. They got the picks. They sucked enough when they needed to suck, and then they build it all the way back up. And here we are, basically 10 years later now. And a little more than that. And they won one title. Yeah. They won one title and made it to another finals. And, we're really good. Had a lot of made it to the conference finals a ton, won a shit ton of playoff games. And that's all, but that, like, ride with the guys that have helped you win the multiple championships as long as you possibly can, because the Celtics, I think, would say they did a lot. They did a lot, if not everything, almost perfectly, and still wound up in a position where they only got the one title. And that's even with the, the Derek Whites and the Porzingis.
Right. They've had some real, Kyrie Irving.
Yeah. Isaiah Thomas was part of it.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Gordon Hayward, poor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you think of all the different, players that they've had at different points, and they had 3 different coaches when it looked like maybe Brad Stevens was just going to be the coach forever there. And obviously he moved into the front office. So, but again, the Celtics, I think you could make the case, have done it as well as anybody, going from one championship core to another, and look at everything that, you get the picks and you have to hit on the picks. And so, I think that's the thing where, the Warriors, you could say, well, JD, the Warriors had the picks. Well, yeah, they had them in 20 and 21, and they
screwed it up.
They screwed it up because they took, they ended up with James Wiseman and not Jason Tatum. And they ended up with Jonathan Kuminga and not Jaylen Brown. And, they ended up with Moses Moody and not Trey Murphy, or what, they've messed it up. in terms of those picks in a number of different ways. You know, they didn't take Şengün, even though they like Şengün, because they already had Wiseman. You know, they didn't go after Halliburton because they had Jordan Poole. You know, they were less interested in Halliburton because they had Jordan Poole, you know, going back to 2020, and they really liked Wiseman. And so, you know, you look at that, and then, you know, even LaMelo Ball, it's, you know, you had LaMelo Ball, but you still had Steph and Clay was going to be coming back, and you had Jordan Poole, and how's LaMelo Ball going to fit? Like, you know, those were the opportunities. Like, you got to wait for those picks again, which means you got to suck again until you're going to get those picks. So again, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent, but like, it's about to be 2026. Let's worry about 2026 and 2027 and what this team can do this year and how good they can make themselves coming up, you know, January 15th to February 5th. Let's see how this year ends up. And, you know, is there enough left in the tank to go for it one more year in 26, 27? And then, to me, the first true evaluation point of what is the post Steph going to look like, or how are you going to go about getting to that point? To me, you're not even doing it. You know, if something catastrophic were to happen in the next 6 months, then maybe you're doing it a little bit sooner. But to me, you're not having that conversation until the summer of 2027, which is still over a year away. All right, let's keep it rolling here. We'll probably go about another 15 or so. Here we get to the 2:00 hour and call it an afternoon, but a lot more Kyle's clicks here in the YouTube chat. Any two of the following players should be available in a reasonable trade package: Kuminga, Moody, Podziemski, and Hield. I don't think there's any doubt, Erwin, that
Can I throw TJD in there too?
Absolutely. TJD can be in a trade. I mean, honestly, I think everybody not – the reality is everybody not named Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond – I think are available. Probably Melton is the next one. And again, is, you know, we're giving Guy Santos and Will Richard. I don't think they're looking to trade Guy and Will Richard either. But the point I'm getting at is maybe you think of it in terms of the big three: Melton, Guy, and Richard. And not that Guy and Richard are like these untouchables, but you still do need, if you make another consolidation type trade, guys like Richard and Guy Santos who know that you can play almost in any rotation, you know, at least for some limited minutes. But so I think everybody else is available. And that's not to say Guy or Richard aren't, but Kuminga, Moody, Pods, Hield, TJD, GP, Post, like to me, everybody's freaking available. For this team.
There's guys that are definitely more available than others. Like I don't think the Warriors are going to be like, I'm trying to see what I can get for Will Richard, right? But you know, you never know. You have to see what you can get in return, and it takes two to tango. So you know, we'll see. I just don't think any of these guys. I mean, Kuminga is the obvious one. Like he's got to go. I think Hield. I think Hield, you know, is a salary filler. Podziemski, somebody you're going to want something pretty good back. I mean, you know, Podziemski is, and again, people don't like hearing this, but Podziemski is the best Warrior prospect right now over Kuminga and Moody. And he makes the least and he does the most. And that's just reality. He is, for all of the inconsistencies, Brandon Podziemski's a better player than Jonathan Kuminga. Brandon Podziemski's a better player than Moses Moody with all of his inconsistencies. It's just, and he's doing it with, you know, less experience. Also, this is year 3 for Pods. This is year 5 for the other two guys. Like, give me a freaking break. Like, I know Podziemski's been far from a perfect player, but and he's a player that frustrates when he doesn't play well. But Podziemski making about $4 million is far more the type of player, and whoever gets him is going to have to pay him. And maybe the Warriors are going to have to pay him here coming up. But Podziemski is the most valuable part of a trade.
And you might have to put Podziemski in to get somebody to take Kuminga and give you something good,
right?
Which is not a position necessarily that you really want to be in.
Or pony up maybe more picks than you originally want to give up.
Or pony up more picks than you originally would want to give up. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Good Draymond. I think they'll trade as few players as possible unless they can get a game changer. We'll see. We'll see. I think that's. Let's see here. All right, let's continue. Sorry, I was looking at another. Looking at another message. JD, what are your thoughts on Will in the starting lineup? I wouldn't switch. I think he can be in there. We've seen him be in there and see them be successful. But I would just keep it as is. Again, they found consistency over the last 7 games. They're 5-2 with that group. I would just keep that group. Keep Post in there. Then it keeps Draymond off the 5. Keep Moody in there. He can be the point of attack defender. And if Moody and Post don't have it as well as maybe they do on some other days, then they just don't play as much. So I think that's where you leave it as far as that goes. Any trade the Warriors do, other teams are going to want Richard as a throw-in. Yeah, they can ask. I mean, and the Warriors are going to, have to weigh it. And I think, it depends on the player you're talking about. It depends on the other players that are going out. Like I'm not going to say Will Richard's untouchable at this point, given the right deal. But I think we know what Will Richard can do in almost any iteration of a Warriors rotation, including some iterations that feature some guys that aren't even on the Warriors roster yet, because they're going to be traded for at some point between January 15th and February 5th. So that's the one thing I do know about Will Richard and Guy Santos. I know they can play in almost any rotation. All right, let's keep it rolling here. Richard is simply just a better player than Podziemski, and Moody, he's not a better player than Podziemski. He's 4th or 5th best on the team. We can debate we can have a conversation about Moody. I'm not even necessarily willing to fully go there yet, but again, the consistency, the steadiness is there for Podziemski or for Richard, to where when you can put him out there, and like I always say, you don't feel like he's killing you. But no, Richard is not a better player. He might be a better finishing lineup player with Steph and Jimmy and Draymond, on certain nights, but yeah, again, I don't, that's kind of a fool's debate. Paul James Lopez, why do we box Guy Santos into end of the bench fringe NBA player? He always has a positive impact on the game. You know who's a fringe NBA player? Anthony Lamb, Alfonso McKinney, Quinn Cook. I mean, look, I think Guy's better than all those guys for sure already, but you can be better than all those guys and still be a back end of the roster NBA player. And I think, that's Guy is, I think for sure, an 11 to 15 roster player, like at any point, any day, even if he's not playing or not playing well. I think what fluctuates with Guy is there are times where he can be your 8th man, and then there are other times where maybe you don't want him to be your 8th man. But he does impact game. When you get him out there in the right game, in the right matchup, he definitely makes a big time positive impact on the game. And so that's where it's on Kerr to find the right matchups to get him out there, Kyle, because there are games where he is overmatched with some of the athleticism. There's no.
I was just about to say that where his his energy and offensive rebound and energy and getting rebounds, I should say, is like doesn't overmatch maybe some of the talent and athleticism that his matchup has, or the team he's going against has. Because no, there are definitely times where he does look like a liability.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And so, I think that's something that that definitely, on a night in, night out basis, it's just, again, it's all dependent on Matt. Now, the Warriors may not have a better option than Guy on some of those nights, and he has to just kind of be out there. But it's that I think picking the right night, as Kerr has more often. And again, I think you can play. I think Guy Santos is just a really good regular season player, right? He's just a guy I think that you can trust to be in there. And at a minimum, he'll help you beat Charlotte, and he'll help you beat Brooklyn, and he'll help you beat Dallas, and he'll help you. But guess what? The Warriors have not won those games nearly consistently enough. And so, getting him out there more in those games is important as it relates to winning. Time will tell on where Guy Santos is. But the one thing that I don't do is, it's like the Pat Spencer thing, right? Like Pat Spencer had a couple of games and everybody's like, Pat's got to be this and got to be that. And it's like, well, no, actually Pat over, it didn't even take that long. It's like he kind of went back to being Pat Spencer, which doesn't mean if there's games where Steph's out at some point, which I'm sure there will be between now and the middle of April, that Pat can't come in and maybe look like the Pat Spencer that we saw in Cleveland and Chicago. But to think off a couple of games that, or a bunch of games where he's playing 10 to 15 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes that I think we tend with certain players to get a little over the top a little too quickly. There's a reason why a lot of these guys have not been playing at the level that would warrant them getting, like, if Guy Santos was truly killing it every single time, he'd be out there every single time. Like, it's just, sometimes we get caught in this, like, this alternate reality or this revisionist history with respect to who's playing well and who's not. Andis Brown, AD wearing a Warriors jersey when the Warriors play in Dallas. Dun, dun, dun. Wow. Okay. Could be. But that would, I think, mean that Draymond Green's wearing somebody else's jersey. And I just don't see the Warriors moving Draymond. I really, at this point, don't see the Warriors moving Draymond. And I think the acquisition of Anthony Davis with his injury history and his level of fitness at this point is probably a little too risky. Could you imagine trading Draymond for Anthony Davis and then Anthony Davis ends up with some kind of major injury? Yeah. Forget about the injuries that he always gets, where he's out a couple of weeks here and a month. Like, what if you actually had a major one and then you were committed to him for the next couple of years? That would be a very, very difficult pill to swallow. All right, let's go rapid fire here. Final couple of minutes. JD, do you think this JK stuff has the opportunity to get pretty messy? A-Rock and JK have been very quiet, but I think if this slips into Feb, both JK and the PA, the Players Association. He's under contract. Here's the thing, as far as the Players Association goes, the Warriors are under no obligation to trade him. Like, he is under contract for the remainder of this year. He is, if the Warriors have the team option for next year, so there's a date in the summer where they have to decide, hey, we're picking the contract option up and you're on the team next year until we trade you, or we're not picking the contract up and thank you, goodbye, you're a free agent, which again, I don't think there's any circumstance the Warriors would be looking to do that if he winds up back on the team. But the bottom line is, I think Aaron Turner and Kuminga have been quiet because I do think internally everybody's on the same page. I don't think if Kuminga is going to play 10 minutes a game and he can't be a positive impact player in that role, then it's best for everybody, including JK, to just not play. There's no sense in risking injury between now and then. So I think the reason that Aaron Turner and Kuminga have been quiet is because everybody's on the same page, and there is a belief. The only thing that they can have an agreement on, a gentleman's agreement on, so to speak, is that, hey, we're going to do everything we can to trade him by February 5th. That's the trade deadline. Now, if he's on the team after February 5th, then I think, Aaron Turner and Jonathan Kuminga and Warrior fans would have, and Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy and Steve would have, everybody would have a right to be pissed off if Jonathan Kuminga is still on the Warriors past the trade deadline. That's the one thing that cannot happen under any circumstances. Again, that doesn't help the Warriors. That doesn't help Kuminga. That doesn't help Aaron Turner. So I do think I give everybody credit for it not getting messier to this point. But again, I think the reason it hasn't gotten messier to this point is because there's a nod and a wink and a handshake agreement that the Warriors are going to do everything they can to move them. And it doesn't help, and everybody knows it. So it's not like it's something that has to be leaked or that Aaron Turner has to go on. Like, the last thing the Warriors want is Aaron Turner going on some freaking media tour now. I mean, he's under contract and with the Warriors. Like, you're not going to do that. You do that in the summer when you're a restricted free agent. Like, you don't do that once your client is actually on a team. Like, it just doesn't work that way. Like, he's on a team getting paid handsomely. I think he's the fourth highest paid player on the Warriors right now, fourth highest paid. So it's not like Kuminga's living a tough life right now. It sucks for him that he's not playing, but he's getting compensated very well at this point to not play. So I actually don't think it's going to get messy unless to me, the one person that has the potential to make it messy is Joe Lacob, if he just flat out refuses to trade him for a role player. But Joe, that hay's been in the barn for about 2 years. So, this is your last chance to trade him for a role player. Because I'm going to tell you, I don't think you're getting anything better than that in the summer in a package involving Jonathan Kuminga. And if you wait and you get lowballed on a bunch of freaking deals, then you really truly are screwed. If you get to that point and then, we don't want to trade, we'll trade him at the dead. Oh, then you're getting nothing for him. Then you truly are getting nothing for him.
You're getting Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, well, they may have to try to get that, kind of a deal now. I mean, we shall see on that front. All right, let's get a couple more. Let's roll like 3-4 more. JD, do we want Michael Porter Jr.? Yes. I think you would want Michael Porter Jr. If you could do, and this doesn't feel like if you could do Kuminga, Moody, and Buddy for Michael Porter Jr., and I think the Warriors would have to take a player back at that point because of the salary that they're sending out. I think those three are a little bit more than $3 or $4 million more than Porter. And so the Warriors would have to take something back. But if you said, and they're at the hard cap too, so they'd have to figure it out there. But if you could do that, I think the Warriors would do that. Now the question is, what if they want Pajemski? Instead, and then salary filler. Or what if they want a pick on top of that? Remember, they got a pick from Denver to take Michael Porter Jr.'s salary on. And I think it was a 2032 pick. Like, they got a pick, or 2030 or 2032. They got a pick from Denver. Now Denver ended up with Cam Johnson, but Denver gave up a pick for them to take the Michael Porter Jr. salary, $38 million, I think it is, and get Cam Johnson in return. But no, I'd take Michael Porter Jr. in a heartbeat on this team and plug him in. I think he works. What's going on, Jacob? Happy New Year, brother.
Later.
Happy New Year, brother. All right. Let's do a couple more here, about 2 more minutes. Just have to hold on until Cannon Curry is draft eligible in 2035.
Yeah, don't trade that 35 pick.
Well said. Well said, Andis. Yeah, you can't trade that pick. Good, Draymond. I'm relieved Kerr is sticking with more consistent lineups. It just settles everything down. And it's important because Kerr said he was going to do it, and now they've won 5 of 7 since he's done it. So it just means that he's going to continue to do it. Again, the only thing that maybe gets you off of that, there's 2 things. One would be an injury to one of those 5. The other would be just the fact that you're not winning games at the level you need to be winning games at. Wood Pitt, if Moody was a step or 2 quicker, it'd help him a lot. Yeah, if he was like 3 inches taller or 2 steps quicker, he'd be and he could shoot a little bit more consistently. He'd be Trey Burke in the third.
Yeah. elite 3-and-D guy.
If he was a little taller and a little quicker, Kyle, what happened? Kyle, you took yourself out of the chat, bro. What happened? What happened, Kyle? Get back in here. Did the internet fail on our guy, Kyle?
I don't know what happened there.
Wow.
I don't know what the hell happened there.
Yeah. If Moody was quicker and he shot better and he was taller, he'd be Trey Murphy. I mean, he'd be Michael Porter Jr. No. JD, what's your take on Knipple? I like him. I mean, I like him. He's very skilled, can shoot it. I don't know what I need to see more. I think they're in their infancy stages, Robert, of like trying to build a team. So I don't necessarily know what his ceiling is at this point, but I like him a lot. I think he's a really good young player and, a building block in some form. Is he going to be a star, superstar? We'll see. But to this point, he's been tremendous. But definitely want to see more.
Should we do one more? Do you want to get our comment of the night here?
Yeah, let's do our comment of the night. We got to get out of here.
Now, time for the Dubs OT comment of the night.
Woodpit, we're drinking and swearing. F it. It's New Year's Eve. I know somebody said whiskey or champagne. Both.
I'm not a big wine or champagne guy.
Why not both? I think that's I think that's the way to roll here. All right, let's do some fun with numbers real quick. I don't know if we have the thing or not.
We
don't need to have the thing, but we'll 2-1 on the trip. Warriors are 8-12 on the road now. They've won the last 6 and 8 of the last 10 overall against Charlotte. They play them again January 17th. Warriors are 9-9 on New Year's Eve all time, with 2 of the wins coming at Charlotte. The Warriors played at Charlotte in 2010. So 15 years ago, the Warriors played at Charlotte on New Year's Eve. Go figure. Warriors 8-11 in clutch games with the win. 24 3-pointers, season high for the third time. Warriors made 13 in the first half, which was season high for most in a half. And fifth consecutive game, the Warriors have scored at least 120. So the offense coming around a little bit. Up next year, the Warriors will begin this long stretch, 10 of the next 11 at home, beginning on Friday. We'll be back at Harmonic in Thrive City for Dubs OT following that one. So for Kyle and for everybody in the chat, we appreciate you. Have a wonderful and safe New Year's Eve, and Happy New Year to everybody. We will talk to you in 2026 on Friday.
Woo!
Dubs OT with JD, Kyle Haar, and you for the Sports Leader. See ya.